The Story of Abu Fatima and His Four Wives in Canada. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with love, resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This book is a work of fiction, but the entire novel is based on real stories of 4 Muslim girls and their polygamist husband in Canada. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Therefore, any resemblance to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 11. Their 2 daughters are placed in a foster home. 6 months before the release of Abu Fatima, his third ex-wife Silwa had convinced her new Sudanese husband that they should take their baby boy and flee out of Edmonton and leave the city before the release of her terrorist husband. She told her new husband that her ex-husband has neither regard for the Canadian secular law nor fear of the Western police, and therefore as soon as he comes out of prison he will attack and kill them both in honor killing. Moreover, Silwa heard that her terrorist husband had become outraged when his second wife Intisar informed him that his third unfaithful wife had not only cheated on him with another man, but she had given birth to a baby boy to her new lover. For 16 years, his heart desire was to have a baby boy with one of his 4 Muslim wives. Therefore, he swore by Allah that when he comes out of prison, he is going to insert a big knife in the pussy of his third wife who had given birth to a boy to another man. The terrorist husband's anger knew no limits when his wife Intisar told him that his ex-first wife Ibtisam had also given birth to twin brothers with her old husband, the ex-professor, Dr. Al-Hout. He said he would burn her alive with her 2 illegitimate babies or Alad al-Haram sons. He said her big vagina had given him 4 daughters, but gave the old man 2 sons. Therefore, he determined to burn her accursed pussy too. Silwa's new Muslim husband reluctantly succumbed to her demand. They decided to go to a far city and settle over there. Consequently, without informing anyone about their escape, she, her husband, and their baby boy fled to Toronto City and settled there. Accordingly, when the terrorist Muslim husband got released from prison, his empire of harems has been reduced to 1 single wife. And that Muslim wife, as we had stated earlier, is his cousin, Intisar. She remained faithful to him not out of love, but due to their blood relationship. It will be considered a great disgrace if her family in Sudan learns that she left her relative husband and ran away with another man. She never stopped visiting her Muslim husband in prison. Every week she cooked his favorite food and took it to him. She kept him informed about all the improper behaviors and the cheating of his other 3 Muslim wives, San, Ibtisam, and Silwa. Abu Fatima has been released from prison after 2 years. No one came to meet him at the prison gate except his second Muslim wife Intisar and his 2 daughters, Salama and Sakina. After his release, he began to live with his second Muslim wife. The prison has not changed him. He is still hot-tempered and violent. He often beats his second Muslim wife and their 2 daughters. Despite that, Intisar never complains to the police. She is enduring all his violence and mistreatment. Abu Fatima tried to trace his 2 wives San and Silwa, but he could not find them. His failure to find and punish them made him exceedingly frustrated. Therefore, he is removing all his frustration and anger on Intisar and her 2 daughters. His cruel beatings can be seen in the tremendously abused bodies of those 3 hapless females. In that domestic violence home, the Muslim terrorist man Abu Fatima spent a couple of months with his second Muslim wife Intisar and his 2 daughters before he fell in trouble with Canadian law again. This time the insurmountable problem came from the least expected source. His 2 daughters, Salama and Sakina, are registered as 2 immigrant students in a public school. By then they have become the older daughter 12 years of age and the younger daughter 10-year-old. It so happened that one day in their school there was a routine medical checkup. During the checkup, it appeared that Salama and Sakina had many ugly scars all over their bodies. The medical examiners understood those marks were scars of brutal beatings. Therefore, the school authority immediately informed the police. The police authority has informed the social service department. Abu Fatima and his sister Intisar have been taken into custody and interrogated by the police. However, the two daughters' mother and their uncle have vehemently denied that they have beaten the two girls. Even Salama and Sakina refused to admit that their mother and uncle had beaten them. Nevertheless, the social service took seriously the matter and considered it child abuse and ruled that the two girls should be taken from their abusive mother and uncle and sent to a foster home. The entire Sudanese community in Edmonton became extremely outraged when it learned that the two Sudanese girls had been taken from their Muslim family and put under the care of a white family. How could Muslim girls be placed under the care of a Christian family? They have concluded that the social service department wants to convert to Christianity the two underage Muslim girls. That is the argument of the Sudanese community. All Muslims in Edmonton joined the Sudanese community and protested the decision of the social service. They organized a peaceful demonstration and went around the city carrying placards condemning the government of Alberta. The social service workers understood the concern of the Muslim protesters and therefore took the two abused daughters from the Christian family and put them under the care of a Muslim family. The Muslim family was originally from Pakistan. The Sudanese community was still objecting and demanding that the two underage sisters should either be given back to their mother or to another Sudanese Muslim family. The social service refused to fulfill such a demand. Therefore, the terrorist husband Mr. Muhammad Ahmed Abdul Ghadir, who is also called Abu Fatima, immigrated to Canada with a big joint family. He came with 4 wives and 6 daughters. In less than 3 years his 3 wives left him and joined themselves to other men, and he also lost his 6 daughters. The only woman who remained attached to him despite the beatings and abuses is his cousin and second wife, Intisar. He became incredibly angry when he learned that his first wife Ibtisam married the old man Dr. Al-Hud, took his 4 daughters, eloped with the old geezer, returned to Sudan, and settled in Khartoum city. Therefore, Abu Fatima decided to return to Sudan and take revenge on those who kidnapped his 4 daughters and especially the evil old geezer who kidnapped and raped his first wife. He is afraid that if he stays longer in the land of the accursed infidels, his second wife Intisar might leave him or be taken away from him. He was also scared that he might land in prison again. However, how he could go back to Sudan? He came to Canada without a passport. He traveled from Egypt to Canada through emergency documents issued to him by the Red Cross. Since he came to Canada as a resettled refugee, he could not contact the Sudanese embassy. So, when he had not found a means of returning to his fatherland, the terrorist husband Abu Fatima continued to live in Canada with his wife and cousin Intisar. Chapter 12. Brutal domestic violence. No matter how brutally her husband beats her, his wife number 2 never calls the cops on him. So, Abu Fatima took advantage of this fact and always removed his disappointment, anger, and frustration on her. Many times, the neighbors heard the beating and called the police. Every time the police officers came in, Intisar denied that her brother had touched her. In that abusive married life, Intisar lived with her terrorist husband for a while. She is missing her 2 daughters very much. She is not allowed to see them until they reach the age of 16. Even at that age, she would not be allowed to claim them as her daughters. She would be only their biological mother. Being left without a child, Intisar longs to have children with her husband. Even Abu Fatima wants to have children after he lost all his 6 daughters. But how could they have children when they had already informed the immigration authority that they are brother and sister? If they defied that restriction and had a baby, they would be arrested under the serious charge of incestual relationship between siblings. In their case, a brother and his sister having a sexual relationship is an abominable deed in Canada. Under that charge, they would be imprisoned for many years. Under Canadian federal law, incest is defined as having a sexual relationship with a sibling, including half-sibling, child, parent, grandchild, or grandparent, requiring knowledge of the existence of the blood relationship. Incest in Canada is punishable by up to 14 years imprisonment. Therefore, Intisar cannot be impregnated by her husband for fear of being arrested and imprisoned for such a long time. This fact has increased the wrath of the frustrated husband and made him to be more abusive to his second wife. One day Abu Fatima went into a rage and brutally battered his wife. Intisar was scared that her furious husband might kill her. When the beating became unbearable and she almost got killed by her terrorist husband, Intisar was forced to scream for her dear life. The neighbors heard the screaming and called the cops. When the police arrived and knocked on the door, no one opened it for them. Therefore, they broke the door and rushed in. They found the wife was half-conscious. Even so, as before, Intisar denied that her brother had beaten her. However, this time the police officers took the matter seriously. 2 policewomen took Intisar to a room and locked the door. Then they compelled her to remove all her clothes. When she became fully naked, they examined her body and saw the fresh marks of beatings all over her body. Therefore, the police officers sent the badly battered sister to the hospital and arrested her brother under the charge of domestic violence. This time, the Edmonton Criminal Court ruled that Abu Fatima must spend 6 months in a Canadian prison and then be deported to his country of origin. The court rule is rather good news than bad news for the terrorist man Abu Fatima. Accordingly, when he heard his sentence had been read and someone had interpreted it to him in the Arabic language, Abu Fatima clapped his hands and gave thanks to his God Allah and his gracious Prophet Muhammad, and then he shouted Allahu Akbar thrice. During his 3rd incarceration, Intisar never came to visit her evil husband Abu Fatima. She understood that her relationship with him ended on that day when she screamed and called for help. She eventually made up her mind that she must also forsake her terrorist husband Abu Fatima and look for a good man to marry and start a new married life with him. She understood that what his other 3 wives had done was a good and wise thing. Abu Fatima counted the 6 months day after day. He waited eagerly for his release and deportation. After 6 months, 6 RCMP officers escorted Mr. Muhammad Ahmed Abdul Gader, who is nicknamed Abu Fatima, to the international airport and deported him for good to his country of origin. He was handcuffed until he entered the plane. "Woe to you, Ibtisam," said the terrorist husband when his plane took off. Abu Fatima returned to Sudan empty-handed. Nevertheless, he felt great relief when the plane landed at Khartoum International Airport. When he came out of the plane, he kneeled on his knees and kissed the soil of his great Muslim land. His main goal is to find Ibtisam and the evil old geezer Dr. Al-Hout and take revenge on them. He knows that Dr. Al-Hout did not only kidnap his wife and committed adultery with her and have 2 awlad haram, but he stole his 4 daughters too. Chapter 13. The Righteous Revenge. Abu Fatima understands the Islamic laws of his country quite well. Therefore, as soon as he learned the whereabouts of the wicked old geezer Dr. Al-Hout and his unfaithful wife Ibtisam, he complained about them at the Khartoum Sharia court. In his lawsuit, he stated that his Muslim wife has married another man while she is still his legal wife. Worse than that, she took his 4 daughters without his knowledge and consent and brought them from Canada to Sudan. Therefore, he wants his 4 daughters to be returned to him. He also wants the Sharia court of Allah to decide who is the lawful husband of Ibtisam. The Islamic Sharia court took seriously the case of Abu Fatima and ruled that the 4 daughters should be placed immediately under the custody of their biological father. As regards who is the lawful husband of Ibtisam, the Sharia court took a long time to decide. First, Ibtisam is ordered to separate herself from the old man Dr. Al-Hout and live in her parents' house until the Islamic Sharia court of Allah and his Prophet Muhammad decide who is her legal husband. After much debate and arguments, the judge of the Sharia court and his assistants invalidated the marriage of the old geezer Dr. Al-Hout with Ibtisam. According to them, Abu Fatima has not divorced his first wife Ibtisam, and therefore she is still his lawful wife. The Canadian secular court should not divorce a Muslim wife from her lawful Muslim husband unless there is a valid reason for such a divorce. When she is questioned by the Sharia court as to why she divorced her husband, Ibtisam could not be able to give any valid religious reason. As a wife, according to Islamic Sharia law, she has no right to divorce her husband. God gave this right unconditionally to the husband. The husband has the absolute right to divorce his wife at any time he wishes without giving any reason. The woman should not and could not do so. Therefore, the Sharia court ruled that Ibtisam must return to her lawful husband Mr. Muhammad Ahmed Abdul Ghadir, who is also called Abu Fatima. Regarding the twin sons she got with Dr. Al-Hud, the court agreed that they should continue living with their biological father. This is because the Quran forbids adoption, and therefore Abu Fatima cannot adopt someone else's children. Accordingly, the Sharia court ordered Ibtisam to return to her abusive and terrorist Muslim husband. On the same day, the Sharia court passed the obedience sentence on Ibtisam. The cops took the disobedient wife by force to live with her lawful husband. Abu Fatima has decided to revenge his anger and frustration on his rebellious wife. He told her that he had come from Canada to Sudan to vent his rage and despair on her. He had done everything he could to inflict severe pain on her body. He has punished her for divorcing him and for running away with another man and taking his 4 daughters. He said to her he had become extremely furious when he came to know when he was in prison that Ibtisam had delivered not only 1 male child, but 2 sons to the evil old geezer Dr. Al-Hud. To him, she did not only give birth to 2 females, but 4 girls. He cursed her that night and hammered her mercilessly as if she did that on purpose. That night Abu Fatima battered Ibtisam so badly that he left her half dead. Being deprived of her 2 sons and her dream to inherit the wealth of Dr. Al-Hud, whom she expected would die in a few years, Ibtisam has been left with no other choice except to end her life or kill Abu Fatima. Her short time in Canada had taught her rights as a human being and the importance of living as a free woman. It was as if the pain, suffering, violence, and persecution of Muslim women, who had endured for 1,400 years under that cruel system that gave men absolute power to abuse and torture their females, had gathered in her chest, boiling like a volcano in a huge mountain. On that night, Ibtisam's pain and affliction freed her from her fear and intimidation. She gathered her shattered personality and determined to avenge herself on her terrorist husband who used her and abused her for many years, and the Sharia court has made her his slave forever. She has decided to kill him in the most brutal way that an evil man like him could ever be killed by an outraged woman. She wants to take revenge for all those long and painful 14 years she spent under his tyranny. She filled a large container made of steel with cooking oil and boiled it for an exceedingly long time. A few minutes before Abu Fatima was supposed to wake up from his sleep and perform his morning prayer, his first Muslim wife Ibtisam poured on him that lava-like boiled oil. No human words could describe the terrible pain that engulfed Abu Fatima when Ibtisam poured on his half-naked body that hot oil. He rolled in his bed as if he were rolling on the magma of an exploded giant volcano. Then she called the police and turned herself in. Abu Fatima survived in the hospital for 14 days before he died. Those 14 days for him were like 14 centuries. He suffered a lot before he died. Of course, Ibtisam was arrested, tried, convicted, and sentenced to 14 years of imprisonment. Looking ahead to her life in prison, she spent only 5 years in prison. A new Sudanese president who seized power through a coup d'état issued a presidential pardon to all prisoners. Besides pardoning the prisoners, the president did many good things to win the hearts of the people. A couple of years before her release, the selfish old geezer Dr. Al-Hud, as Ibtisam anticipated, had died. Before his death, the ex-professor Dr. Al-Hud transferred all his properties and wealth to the names of his twin boys. Therefore, when Ibtisam came out of prison, she became one of the wealthiest women in Sudan. She decided never to marry again, but to live with her twin sons and 4 daughters. Shortly after her release, she returned to North America with her 6 children and made Canada her final abode. She settled in a beautiful city called Calgary. That city has reminded her of her handsome lover, Zakia's husband, who had been given a 2-year imprisonment term for practicing polygamy in Canada. Besides, she refused to return to Edmonton City because it might remind her of her 2 late husbands, the terrorist Muslim Abu Fatima and the evil old geezer Dr. Al-Hud. Ibtisam hated both despicable Muslim men with bitterness and wished in her heart that they would burn in the hellfire forever. About the author of this novel. Dr. A. Ahmed is an author and scholar. He has 5 university certificates, BA, MA, and PhD, in philosophy and comparative studies of religions from India, and a bachelor and a master degree of religious studies and philosophy from Canada. He was born and brought up as a Muslim, but through his study of philosophy and comparative studies of religions, he converted to Christianity. He has a unique writing style that can break through any religious, social, and cultural barriers and reveal the truth as it is. Moreover, his books are based on first-hand eyewitnesses because he witnessed those dire conditions of Muslim women with his own eyes. He has written 25 books, but has published 10 of them so far. His books have been written in English and translated by him into Arabic. All his books are on the issues of women in Muslim societies and terrorism in Islam. His novels are available on his YouTube pages for free as he reads some of them in English and Arabic.